welcome to the latest episode of the Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. You know, our administration tries to utilize all means of communication to get the message out to our community, whether it's our incredible newsletter that you can gain access by going to www.eastprovinceri.gov. You'll see that link here at the bottom of this screen. Log in for the newsletter, receive that thing once or twice a month with a lot of information. We utilize our website, we utilize all means, and this show is an opportunity for us to bring to our residents very important information about people and things that impact our community. And today's guest, who I'm very, very happy to have here with us today, is our newest congressman, Congressman Gabe Amo, who's been serving our district now for a little bit over a year. Welcome to the show, Congressman.
It's great to be here, Mayor. It's an honor to be in East Providence always, but always a pleasure to be around somebody who's a champion for a city that is a heart of the 1st Congressional District.
Well, thank you, Congressman. You know, and part of being a mayor in the community is you want to work closely with your colleagues in government. We have an incredible congressional delegation. You're one of them, working with Senator Reed, Senator Whitehouse, yourself, Senator Seth Magaziner. Great team to work with. But before we get into all of the great things you're doing for our community, for the state, for the nation, and for East Providence, I often start this program by asking my guests to tell us something about themselves. Go back as far back as you want. I want the community to know who you are as a person.
Yeah. Well, look, that's a great question because we don't start from the place we are. We didn't just fall out of the coconut tree, as the Vice President talks about. We started from somewhere. And for me, that origin is like 8 out of 10 babies at Women and Infants Hospital. But what preceded that, my parents. My dad, who was born in Ghana, came to Rhode Island in the early 80s. My mom was born in Liberia, came to America in the early 80s for economic opportunity, like a lot of people. My mom was preceded by several of her brothers and one of her sisters, my Aunt Regina. And my dad, you know, had spent some time in other American cities and thought this was the place to be. Came to work for $2 an hour in a factory in Central Falls, living on Perry Street, buying his first house. That's a dream that, you know, he was able to fulfill. And that's a story that's common to a lot of Rhode Islanders, right? We, you know, besides the indigenous folks, we're all immigrants from somewhere. We all came, whether it was, you know, forced and enslaved labor of folks from Africa in the Triangle Trade, or people who came here to escape the famine in terms of the Irish folks, or people who have escaped war-torn countries and come here. We have seen waves of migration. It's a very Rhode Island story. And so I grew up in Pawtucket. My dad and mom, when they split up, my dad was living in Central Falls, my mom in Pawtucket, actually where our district office now where it is about 12 blocks away from the triple-decker that my mom and I lived in on Sisson Street.
Sisson Street.
Sisson Street.
No kidding, great neighborhood.
Yeah, so right on Woodlawn.
Right in Woodlawn,
yeah. Right on Woodlawn. And then
that was my beat, you know, back in the day when I was a police officer.
Oh, I didn't know
Woodlawn was my, you know, I started policing with Pawtucket in 1993.
Wow.
And for the first 5 years of my career, I was a patrolman, a beat officer. Yep. And Woodlawn was my district, which I used to love.
Woodlawn, I love Woodlawn because it's gritty.
Cop five.
It's got so many different types of people. I mean, when my mom first bought that triple-decker, we had the Shea family who owned the house on the first floor. She eventually bought the house from them. They used to babysit me all the time, an older couple and their son. Just down the street, Ama's Variety.
I remember Ama's
Variety. So those are like my auntie and uncle, play auntie and uncle, Uncle Isaac and Auntie Ama, who has since passed away, a staple in that neighborhood. To one of my best friends growing up, Tommy Gomes, and his twin sister, Kristen Gomes, a Portuguese and Cape Verdean family who I grew up with. And I went to Mass and went to Catholic school at St. Mary's Parish on George Street. The school's gone. Yeah. Right? The school has been on the market several times.
That's on the market now. I saw it recently.
I mean, look, if I could get the money, maybe I'd turn it into something. But, you know, right next to the convent, right? So the Sisters of Mercy. Yeah. And, you know, I had my first communion over at St. Mary's Church, was an altar boy there. And so that's how I grew up.
You grew up in a community, and I reflect fondly about it because I really enjoyed working in Pawtucket. And what I loved about Pawtucket and that neighborhood was that you had a lot of recent immigrants.
Yes.
people whose first language was not necessarily English. And me being, I have a similar story to you. My parents immigrated from the Azores. And my first language at home was Portuguese before I went to school and learned. And one of the benefits that I enjoyed about working in Pawtucket, especially Woodlawn, you had a lot of Portuguese, Cape Verdean immigrants who didn't speak English, and I was able to communicate with them.
That's amazing.
Let me ask you now, did you pick up any other languages growing up? Or
I picked up a lot of the food.
a lot of the food, okay.
You know, you talked to my Cape Verdean friends about cachupa. I spend a lot of time having chorizo with my Portuguese friends, and so I know the bad words. That's what I would say. But that's what's special about Rhode Island, right? In that little footprint, I could get Irish, I could get Portuguese, Cape Verdean, West African folks from multiple different countries, all right there in the heart of a gritty city.
Yeah.
And so that's why it'll always be part of my identity. Though I don't live there right now, my district office, I can oversee the Little League field where I played at Morley Field.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only a few blocks down the road in Providence. My mother lives on the Pawtucket Central Falls line.
Currently.
But I'm in Pawtucket a lot of my time. And it's what made me. And I think about, how your world is so small when you're younger.
Yeah.
And I think about when I would ride my bike to the other side of Pawtucket, go to Darlington, or go to countryside, and experience different worlds, all in one tightly packed place. And that's what's special about Rhode Island.
And I have to agree with you. What makes Rhode Island so special is that the diversity of people, the diversity of cultures. East Providence, same way. Yeah. We keep, like the people who are moving into the city, it's constantly an ebb and flow, right? The Cape Verdean people, very instrumental in forming and shaping East Providence into what it is today. The Portuguese people, same thing, very instrumental. The Irish, the Italians. Now we're starting to see more people from India moving into our community. We're seeing a lot more Hispanic people moving into our community. It's a constant ebb and flow. And when the different cultures come in, it just makes the community a more welcoming, better place, in my opinion. That's what's special about Rhode Island, is that you feel welcome no matter where you go.
Definitely.
But so, as a young person,
you
went to school, and can you share with us what you share with us your education?
Definitely. So for 9 years, I went to St. Mary's School, kindergarten and 8th grade. So I had probably 4 nuns across the way. And, Sister Barbara, Sister Jones, Sister Francel, I remember their lessons a lot. And then after elementary school, middle school, I went to Moses Brown School in Providence. Okay. For me, I had siblings who went to Shea High School. I had a sister older than me who went to Bishop Keogh. For me, it was really important that I push myself as far as I could go. And it was difficult, I'll tell you. Tuition when I got there was $15,000 a year. I think now it's higher, in the 40s. And I was a scholarship kid there. I would take a mix of the yellow bus and RIPTA. More often than not, actually, most of the time I ended up taking RIPTA because I would miss the other bus because it was an early wake up to get there. Yeah. I was lucky enough to go to Moses Brown, was involved early, played high school football, played lacrosse, ran track, had the opportunity to actually go to Washington, D.C. My first time on a plane to Washington, D.C., winning a scholarship while I was at Moses Brown called the United States Senate Youth Program, where 2 kids picked from every school, 2 kids picked from every state across the country. You serve as a delegate for your state, and that was my first exposure.
What grade were you in?
I was a senior in high school. Is
that what spurred the interest?
It's part of it. It's part of it. It felt real for the first time. When I was younger, I always talked about politics. My parents often say I was, always giving a speech of some sort, and I had a sort of knack for wanting to put people together to solve problems, and I've always thought about scale. How can I help as many people with whatever I'm doing? And, that trip helped. It made it real. When you get to see, it was President George W. Bush on the South Lawn, when you get to interact with Senator Jack Reed, Senator Lincoln Chafee at the time, that said to me, okay, well, this is I want to work with these people. I didn't know what it would be, but I wanted to work with those people. So then after Moses Brown, I went to Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts. So basically, I barely left Rhode Island, and I was in Rhode Island, multiple days a week because I always had some job in politics, volunteering, working for the state Democratic Party, always involved from a professional basis throughout my time in college. And in fact, before I started college, worked for Sheldon Whitehouse when he was running for the Senate. Wow. And then after Wheaton, I won a scholarship. I won a scholarship while I was at Wheaton called the Truman Scholarship for a dedication to a career in public service. It's a combination of grades, community service history, and a rigorous interview and review process. People who have gotten it are Susan Rice, former United States Ambassador to the United Nations, National Security Advisor, people like Janet Napolitano, Jake Sullivan, really prominent folks who have gotten that Truman Scholarship. And then I won another one that funded graduate study at Oxford in the UK. And that's called the Marshall Scholarship, a gift from the United Kingdom to the US for the Marshall Plan, which helped in the reconstruction of Europe after World War II. So I got to study at the University of Oxford and then wrapped up my time there and got into the professional world. But I've been blessed. Education has been a pathway not only to learn things, but to meet people, to have relationships that allow me to serve. And I think about it on a small level. I think about the friends from middle school's grandmother who had a benefits issue that my office helped with, to thinking about at the national level some of the people that I've worked with who are helping to inform legislation that I'm writing, but I happen to go to graduate school with them. So those relationships are so meaningful in the work that I do.
I'm learning a lot about you today. And, I think this is a great opportunity for people to learn about who the person is that's representing them in Congress. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. But I want to hear more about your football career in high school. What did you play? What position? And how did that go?
Well, it's sort of like my, people ask me what I played in Little League Baseball. I say left out. and look, I spent some time on the bench. My senior year, I played a little bit more. I played corner and receiver, but a receiver who can't catch doesn't play a lot on that side of the ball. But played corner, and look, I'm scrappy. I've always been the smallest in the group. And so, when you play cornerback, it's a lot of bumping people. It's a lot of getting in the way. And sometimes getting in the way is the most important thing you can do on the field. Yeah. And I actually spend a lot of time with my high school football classmates. We're on a group text right now about going to a future Moses Brown game probably tomorrow night. And it was such a good experience. They called me the team politician because everybody knew I wasn't going to be MVP, but I was going to do something with the tongue I possessed. I often had coaches tell me on the sideline, Gabe, stop talking. Stop talking.
Well, you know what it is? I mean, team sports as a youth helps to develop the sense of teamwork and working collaboratively to get things done, and that's what you're doing now in your position. But first, let's talk about, it looked like you knew early on what you wanted to do. You wanted to serve the public, and you've done that. And you've done that in different capacities, working your way up to where you are today. But I just want to share with the community, I want you to share with the community, that you have worked with some of the presidents that we've had.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I've been lucky, and in the sense that I've been in the right place at the right time for certain jobs. I mentioned that I got to work for, or I didn't mention, but after grad school, I started working in professional politics at a high level. Worked at the national headquarters for Barack Obama when he was running for re-election, and that job gave me access to the White House for my first job there, which was a low-level staff assistant in the Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs that was headed by Valerie Jarrett, the president's senior advisor, and her direct reporting to the president. So got to go in the White House every day as my job at just being 24, 25 years old. A huge, huge honor. And in that role, I essentially helped move a lot of paper around, helped service the needs of governors and state legislatures all around the country. And working for President Obama was an experience that I will never forget. It gave me an opportunity to work for this transformational figure, historic figure, but also be with people around the same age, 5, 10 years more than me in some cases, who are singularly focused on not letting the American people down. That's the sort of team spirit that you can't recreate in anything. And so got to work for 2 years working on things like the response to the Ebola crisis. I remember distinctly sitting in rooms where I had to figure out how to message to governors across the country how the waste from the Ebola patient in New York was going to make its way down to get incinerated in Louisiana. And there was a lot of controversy because it was a scary new disease, sort of where we were with COVID. I got to work on things like helping to expand Medicaid across the country, so critical to getting people covered, people who have never had health insurance before, but because of the Affordable Care Act that President Obama moved forward, we did that. And so when my time was wrapped up there, I came back home, worked for Gina Raimondo when she was governor of our state, right from the start of her term, and worked with community leaders, worked with business, chambers, worked with faith community, municipal leaders, the whole 9 yards of the outreach and external work that you need to do the job of governor well, and did that for 3.5 years. And then got to go to the White House again. I was fortunate to work for Joe Biden as a senior staffer at the White House. My full title was a mouthful: Special Assistant to the President and Deputy Director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Long title, but all it means is helping people on good days and bad days. Yeah. And whether it was a mass shooting, a wildfire, a building collapse in the case of Surfside, to hurricanes and all of the extreme weather we see, I was often the first on the phone with the mayor to say, how can I help? We're coming. What do you need? On behalf of the president. Often standing with the president in the Oval Office while he's making those calls. And then on the good days, all the great investments that you're making, right? The rescue plan, the ARPA, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, helping local leaders invest in their communities.
Well, I'll tell you, you're a young man. I'm 55. You got to be what?
36.
36. You're a young man. And you've accomplished quite a bit in such a short period of time. And then another opportunity came your way. Yeah. And sometimes I say to people, it's not necessarily, sometimes it's opportunities open up.
Yes.
When the opportunity came for me to run for mayor, I was not intending on running for mayor. An opportunity presented itself. People approached me. Like I'm sure they approached you the same way and said, hey, why don't you consider running for the seat? Yeah. And I know that you ended up considering it. Explain how you made that decision.
Yeah. Look, I was having a regular day. March, I think it was 21st of 2023. I was walking down the street, Vermont Avenue, on my way into the White House for work, and walked and saw a push alert on my phone that our great Congressman, David Cicilline, wanted to leave to take a different job. And I said, oh, great, he's going to leave next year. Wow, that election's going to be interesting. And then it said, no, he's going to leave effective June 30th. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. That's quick. And immediately my phone started buzzing. So are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Because people I know and have known for a long time have always thought that I would at some point serve. I didn't think it'd be now. I very much enjoyed my job at the White House, the hardest job I had had at that point. Something that kept me up with sleepless nights, but was fulfilling because I was helping to affect the lives of 330 million people across the country. That is something that I will never forget. But I saw an opportunity to serve. And the worst thing that could happen is losing. But I wouldn't lose because whoever came through and won, I was going to support and ensure that their success, maybe I'd get to work for them. Right. And so in so many ways, I saw it as an opportunity to test whether, my experience, whether my brand of leadership, it was something that was meaningful to people in the Ocean State, in the place that I call home. And so, the calculus for me was as simple as, do you care about Rhode Island? Do you want to try? And the worst thing that can happen is that you can lose. And in life, sometimes the best lessons are learned from doing, not just thinking about doing something, but actually doing the thing.
Absolutely. And so you've been there now almost over a year.
A little less than. So I've been in 11 plus months.
Okay, 11 plus months.
Yeah.
And you've jumped right in. You've wasted no time working on behalf of the people of Rhode Island and especially East Providence. And one of the issues that is a hot button issue right now is the Washington Bridge. You know, and we're going to need federal funding. And you, working with the other congressional delegation, have succeeded in getting us some funding. Can you talk about some of the funding sources that are coming our way for the Washington Bridge construction?
Definitely. Well, look, first and foremost, I would say to the people of East Providence, the people of the East Bay, people throughout the state, we hear you. This is an unfortunate circumstance that you don't deserve. And, you know, our job in government is to say, I don't care when something happened, but I'm going to try to fix it. Leadership is about meeting moments. Mayor, you've done an exceptional job meeting with small businesses, talking to people, hosting forums, putting forward the needs of East Providence as you articulate that to state leaders and to federal leaders like me. So I first want to commend you on that leadership. Moreover, this is a team sport. Leadership is a team sport. And so no singular person drives what happens next. And so I know everybody's got a role to play, the governor, Director Alviti, and us in the delegation and our local leaders as well. And so we're all stepping up to the plate. And I hope that as frustrating as the disruptions to way of life, whether it's small businesses, whether it's going to your doctor's appointment, whether it's our first responders, we have work to do and we know that. Now, that said, I say that no one person deserves all the credit, but I will say we have an exceptional senior senator in Jack Reed, who is a leader on the Appropriations Committee. I think he's one of the longest serving members at this point, maybe the fifth in the whole Senate. And so he's got a lot of pull. And between him, Senator Whitehouse, who is exceptional, and in fact wrote one of the programs that we're getting money from, and myself and Congressman Magaziner, we're very focused on this. I have had the relationships with people in the Biden administration, as you know, so I call up Secretary Buttigieg directly. He's someone I knew before. He was famous Mayor Pete. He was no-name Mayor Pete. And I couldn't say his name then. I can say it now, Buttigieg. But I remember first meeting him in December of 2013 at the White House, a relationship that I've carried into my job in Congress. And so we have secured $221 million. That's incredible. $221 million, right, between infra and mega grants, two programs that were in the bipartisan infrastructure law that I helped advocate for and implement when I worked at the White House, and that Senators Whitehouse and Reed voted for and helped get through the Senate. So some of the work that's benefiting us today is seeds that were planted before that are coming to fruition now. That, in addition to what the state is doing in regards to Garvey bonds, puts us in a position to have the funds necessary. We should not worry about the funds. And if we will have more bites at the apple, as I said on radio recently, we will take more bites at that apple to get the resources. You know, that is our ultimate promise. And so, you know, the speed with which that this has come is not like it usually happens in government. I remember distinctly December 11th, that day that will live in our memory. And it was my birthday, actually.
Oh, really?
So I remember sitting at my desk in Washington. I just arrived to start voting for the week and saw this. And I said, this will dominate our work, and it should, because this is important. And we'll do everything we can. And I'm so glad to have you as a partner, Mayor, in this.
Well, you've been wonderful to work with. And I remember that call. I remember the call on December 11th when I received a call from Director Alviti telling us that he was shutting down the bridge, and I thought he was kidding at first, but then we realized there was no joke. And I must say, you know, when you're in the public eye, people see you as a public figure, but when they get to know you as a person, you're just a regular guy. You're just a regular guy from Pawtucket.
That's it.
Whose immigrant parents came over. I had the pleasure of meeting Mayor Pete. Same thing. What a wonderful person he
Good
is.
guy.
Honestly, we had breakfast. After the bridge situation happened, he came to
Where'd
visit.
you go to breakfast?
We had it over at Francesca's
there you go.
in East Providence. And we sat down for breakfast one-on-one, and he was such a genuine, regular guy. And that's what's wonderful about, you know, people sometimes look at people in public office as, you know, because they see them up there, they think they're different. They're just regular people, like you and me, just trying to do what's best for our community.
Exactly.
Because we care about our people, we care about our community. Now, let's talk about what are some of your big issues, some of the things you're working on right now in Congress.
Well, look, you know, when you go to Congress, Congress is like a buffet, and there's so many things on the menu, and you got to figure out what you can attack and address. So I usually put it in two categories. They're the big, long, intractable issues that we'll be working on for a long time, and there are things that I think we can address in the near term and things that are very Rhode Island focused. So when I look at the longer term things, you know, I brought Congressman John Larson here to East Providence Senior Center with you. You were so gracious to join us to talk about Social Security and making sure that we fund Social Security, that while people are talking about cutting it, that we do exactly the opposite of that and invest in it so that we can make sure that I maybe get it one day, right? You know, 30 years from now, I want my Social Security. Right. And we've been paying into the system. So that is part of one of those things. Another big issue, gun violence prevention. There's so much work to do, from banning assault weapons to ensuring that we are able to do proactive, smart things like give people a tax credit on gun safes. I co-sponsor a bill to do that. Look, I realize there are lawful gun owners. What I want to make sure is when you require a gun safe, like we will in Rhode Island because of legislation to the General Assembly, that no one says, oh, I can't afford it, because we know the harms that can come when guns aren't in the right hands. I'm also working on, you know, other long-term issues as it relates to climate change and our coastal resilience here. We are exposed, right? East Providence, right along the waterfront. We see the rising sea levels. That has a major impact. So working at funding to work on some of that restoration work, but also the long-term issues as it relates to implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act. But then there are other shorter-term issues that I am trying to get some quicker wins on that can move the ball forward. For example, I have a piece of legislation that has passed the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology around the literacy for artificial intelligence, AI. We know that our teachers and our students are being exposed in so many ways. We have to integrate it into the classroom in a way that we integrated the internet. You know, right. I remember when I started school, the internet wasn't a thing. Right. By the time I was done with school, the internet was centered in the experience. AI is going to change the way we think and learn. So making sure that we have literacy and funding to do that. So I've got a piece of legislation that hopefully gets passed by the Senate and the President signs. That would be an honor to have that. We also have work around our blue economy. All of the marine, ocean-based industries, whether it's our ports, technology, offshore wind, shipbuilding, underwater drones, so many different things. And so I've got a piece of legislation that is about investing in ocean science, something that will benefit us and allow them to partner with groups that are doing work around growing our blue economy. So, you know, I've got a wide range of things, and then I also serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee, so making sure that I'm monitoring our relationships with allies as we try to defeat Putin and we try to bring stability to the Middle East.
Well, I'll tell you, Congressman, you jumped right in, both feet. You ran in to start doing this work on behalf of our nation, on behalf of our city. I mean, we know that there are people out there always attacking programs that have existed for a long time, such as Social Security. We don't want to see those benefits cut back. We don't want to see people lose their benefits. So I appreciate that you're a champion for that and that you're protecting people's retirement. You know, I can't believe I'm getting the note that we're done.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow, that went by quickly.
30 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, sir. And I really want to say thank you for joining us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the latest episode of the Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. Our guest today, Congressman Gabe Amo, is doing great things for our country, great things for our nation, great things for our city and state. And we appreciate that you took time to watch the show. Make sure you stay tuned to the next episode. We'll see you out there. Stay safe.